You know, I really don't mind ants. Really, I don't. So long as they stay outside. Ants do a major job out there. If it weren't for ants, we'd be awash in rotting things, like dead plants, dead animals, or the garbage that sloppy people leave out in the wilderness. Ants are kind of like living vacuums, you know, the insect version of a hound dog under the table. I just prefer they stay outside and not in my home. But it seems they like heat and air conditioning just like we do. Unfortunately, I live in a house that's a mite over 110 years old, pushing 120. Ants and spiders have long ago figured out how to infiltrate. Fortunately, I do have some options. I could ignore them, but the wife wouldn't appreciate that. Basic controls do work. Keep everything clean, wipe down the countertops with a vinegar cleaning solution. The vinegar trick's supposed to work for 2 or 3 days or so, I'm told. Keep the trash picked up and taken out. Or I could put out some kind of bait and kill the little trespassers. Now there are ant bait solutions and or baited traps out there. You can go to Walmart and find some. You can go to your local box, home supply store, what have you. But they cost money. And I found them only so effective. And being a bit of a cheapskate, if I can make something that works from what I already have to hand, I'd rather do that. So I made my own bait mixture. Now I've been baiting ants for a few years now. We seem to get a new crop every year. And I did what a lot of people have and searched for homemade ant killer on my favorite search engine. Most of the recipes are a variation on a theme, with the exception of a few organic or all-natural baits. Now, I'm a pretty basic kind of guy, and no one in my home has serious allergies, so I went with simple. Now, simple is a solution using Borax, which is an inexpensive, readily available cleaning booster that I had on my basement landing. Now, it's a salt of boric acid, and that makes it toxic in large quantities, especially to small critters. In larger small quantities would be toxic to children or even adults, but that's another subject. The fact that I already had it for something else is a plus, as it didn't cost me any extra money. The basic mixture is 3 parts sugar to 1 part borax, plus enough water to get it to mix together. Some folks add some syrup of some kind, didn't seem to matter what kind. Others add some flavoring. Some use honey instead of sugar. So if you decide to do this, you don't need to be too particular. Just remember the 3-to-1 sweetener to borax ratio. Now in my case, I threw together a couple of teaspoons sugar, maybe 2/3 or 3/4 teaspoon of borax, a teaspoon or so of blackberry powder that I have dehydrated, and a little bit too much water. It came out too runny. Being too runny, I added a touch of cornstarch to help thicken it. I had to settle for a couple of minutes, but it seemed to work. If you don't add too much water, ignore the cornstarch. Now, the purpose of the blackberry powder was to make the solution visible. I don't know what ants can taste, but given a lot of what they eat, I doubt it. For my purposes, I added the fruit powder to make sure I could find where I put it so I can clean it later. Food coloring would do just as well. This time, since I made such a small amount, I mixed the solution in a paper bowl and put it out on a disc cut from a paper plate, right across an ant trail on the counter. Makes for quick cleanup or follow-up bait change. Now, I know this is not a kid or pet-friendly method, but my kids are in their 30s, in their own homes, and we don't have any animals that get on the counters, so we can get away with this. As you can see, the stuff is a hit with the ant population. Ants aren't particularly efficient foragers, but they are effective. It took them about a minute or so to find it, even though it was on top of an established trail. So now it's a matter of waiting for them to carry off enough to feed the whole colony. May take a few days for that. Have to be ready for the numbers to bump up until they've loaded up on this stuff. Remember, 3 sugars to 1 borax, just enough water to mix it together, maybe a little syrupy. Some color to remember where you put it. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and maybe even subscribe. Have a good one. See ya.